Shalom, this is Shira Sherbow coming to you from Spot, Israel. I want to welcome you to our Saturday Night Live Tour for the Nations Women's Gathering. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about 3 different bull stories. My husband said, what, the 3 bears? And I said, no, not the 3 bears, the 3 bulls. So the 3 bull stories are, one of them has to do with the Wall Street bull. You know, you've probably heard of the bull market and the bear market. The bull market's when things are going up. The bear market is when things are going down. So we're going to talk about that one. Another bull is, there's a great story I'm going to tell you about this arrogant man who, he didn't like the way things were going. And so at one point in the story, he's like, oh, this is bull. And the third bull story is about this time of the year that we're in right now. We've just started a new month, and on the zodiac it's Taurus, the Taurus bull. And so I think I'm going to start with that bull. So yesterday we began a new month on the Hebrew calendar. It's the month of ER, and it's the 2nd month in the year. And every month has certain energies or strengths that you tap into. So I thought you might want to know, like, what's in the air for this month. The bull is a symbol of strength, which is good. So there's a lot of strength to accomplish our goals this month. And ER in Hebrew is Aleph Yud Yud Resh. And so it's an acronym for I am God your healer. So thank goodness, with everything going on in the world, there's a propensity towards healing. This is a month of healing, both spiritually, physically, also emotionally, because what is going on this month. And so let's just dedicate this time, our Torah learning, to all the people that we know that need healing, whether it's physical, spiritual, emotional, financial. But this is the month to tap into that, because what is going on is that in the first month of the Hebrew calendar, it was the month of Nisan, and that's the month of miracles. And so the big miracle was, of course, that God took us out of Egypt. But that's just half the battle, because you know, they say you can take somebody out of Egypt, but now you've got to take Egypt out of the man. And so what's going on is that at one time, we were all these godly souls up there in heaven with God. And so we asked to come down here and be born and to do service for him. So now we're dealing on this earth with 2 souls. We have our godly soul, but now we have this body, this animal soul. So God takes us out of Egypt in the first month. And now we're in this 7-week period where we have to do something to get ready for the wedding. There's a wedding coming between God and man. We're going to receive the Torah on Mount Sinai. And it's like a wedding. It's a oneness takes place, like heaven comes down to earth. And so here we are. We're taken out of Egypt, but we have this animal soul that we have to refine, and we have to get ready for the wedding, and we have to work on our character defects. So this whole month of ER is that month of healing spiritually, taking care of our character defects, getting ready for this, you know, this time that we're coming to, this 7-week journey that we're on before we have this wedding with God. So this month of ER, there's also a holiday that I don't think many people have ever heard of. It's called the mistake holiday, or the holiday of second chances, or it's never too late kind of holiday. But what it is it's the second Passover. So there was some people that when they celebrated the first Passover, they were not able to, and they complained to Moses, you know, because they were, at that time, they were spiritually impure, or they were on a far-off road. And so they said, we missed out. And so Moses went to God, and they established this holiday, of the second Passover. And I wanted to read you, there's a woman that wrote her story about the gift of second chances. And you've probably heard of the recovery groups, the 12-step groups. So she is in recovery, and so it's kind of like an anonymous thing. Her name is Susan T. But what she says is, she says, we in recovery, we know about second chances. No matter where we've been or how low we have fallen, with God's help, we are able to look at ourselves and to make amends and to begin again, and sometimes again and again. She says there's a little known Jewish holiday that falls this week that celebrates the concept of second chances. Now she says this week, in this year, this second chance holiday, this mistake holiday is going to start the night of May 8th. It's just one day, the night of May 8th and 9th. So she says, it is a one-day celebration of the ability that God has given us to call out to Him. It is His message to us that it's never too late. So all of us understand this needing a second chance. I mean, ideally, you get things right the first time, but it is nice to know that if you don't, like we have days when we, we speak hurtful words and we apologize, we want a second chance. Or maybe sometimes we have a deadline with something and we miss the deadline and we want a second chance to get it in. So sometimes we get extended a second chance. And so there's this idea that she says that the recovery groups, they study step 5 this month of ER, this month of healing, physically, emotionally. It's known as a month of teshuvah in Hebrew, and I love this word teshuvah because it's very hard to translate this word into English. Sometimes in English it could mean like repenting or forgiveness, but it's so much better than repenting or forgiveness. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but if there's somebody that says, well, I said I'm sorry, and why aren't you forgiving me? And why are you judging me? And so this thing goes on, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but you're like, now what's wrong with this situation? Like, why did they do something, but now it's about me? But what I love about this idea in Hebrew of teshuvah is it's this person saying, I made a mistake. Please give me a second chance. I'm going to work on myself. You're going to see that I'm going to be different. And that's what these recovery programs are about. They're about doing the work, and there's the 12 steps. And so to me, that is like so much better because you actually see that this person is not focused on you, whether you're forgiving them or whether you're judging them. They're totally like taking responsibility for themselves, and they're saying, please, I want a second chance. I want to show you that I'm different. And to me, that's just totally different. And so this is what this woman is saying, that she's in this recovery group of recovering alcoholics, and she says, many recovery groups do step 5 this month of ER. She says, we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. So this Pesach Sheni, it's called, second chance, second Pesach. So she says, in admitting our shortcomings in this manner, we have another opportunity to renew our relationship with God, and we become acquainted with our true self. We can repair strained relationships with others, and we learn that this theme of the second Pesach is that it's never too late. So it's always possible to put things right, even if you're impure, you're far away, whatever that means in today's language. It could mean that you've done something to your body that's harmful, or that you're just very far away from your true self. But she says it's a time to assess ourselves daily, take personal inventory, promptly admitting we were wrong. We are allowed to make mistakes, and we do get second chances, and that's an incredible gift. So this is all the exciting stuff that's in the month, in the air this year, in the air this month of ER. So ER is, on the zodiac, it's the Taurus, it's the bull. The bull is the symbol of strength. And what we're doing is we're just working on our animal souls, refining our character, getting ready for that wedding in 7 weeks on Mount Sinai, and doing this work, this teshuvah, true repentance. And what it is, when somebody does true repentance, you see a difference. You see a transformation. So we're going through this 7-week transformation to become different people. When we're standing there at Mount Sinai with God, we want to take care of all our character defects and be ready for this wedding. Okay, so that's the one bowl, the Taurus bowl. And now I'm going to tell you this great story of a guy. He needed physical healing and spiritual healing. And this is in our half Torah portion this week, because we always say that our Torah goes right along with what's going on with us. And so if you want to read this story, it's in 2 Kings chapter 5. And I'll just tell it to you in my own words pretty much. There is a man named Naaman, and he's real up there. He's a general, and he works for the king. And what happened was they were fighting against Israel, and he randomly shot his arrow, and kind of just a fluke, but it was really God, and his arrow hit the king of Israel, and the king of Israel died. So he becomes like this war hero, but it's not really because of anything he did. It was just something that God wanted done, and he used Naaman's arrow. So Naaman gets all the credit for it. He just shoots his arrow up, and it hits the king, and the king dies. And so he's a war hero. And so he captured, he brought back a girl from Israel to be a servant for his wife. And he became kind of arrogant, and he treated this girl in unkindly, and he was kind of got a big head because he had killed the king, and it was really an undeserving arrogance because, like I said, it was something that God really did, not him, but he took all the credit for it. So what happened was he got this skin disease, and he had to be kind of like quarantined. He couldn't be around people. It was contagious. So the servant girl from Israel, she said to her mistress that she worked for, this man's wife, she said, you know, there's a prophet in Israel and he heals. And so Naaman had all the money he wanted, but he didn't have his physical healing. And so he was ready to pay a lot of money if this was really true, if this prophet could heal him. And so what happened was he went to his boss, the king, and he said, you know, my servant girl tells me that there's a prophet in Israel that can heal me. So the king wrote a letter to the new king of Israel, and he said, I'm sending, you know, I want you to heal my guy. I'm sending him. And so when the king of Israel gets this letter, he doesn't even want to go to Elijah because he's been kind of ignoring Elijah. He's worshiping idols. No, it's not Elijah, it's Elisha. He's been ignoring Elisha because Elisha tells him not to worship idols, and he doesn't really want to call on Elisha, and he thinks that this king is expecting him to heal this Naaman, and he knows he can't do it. So he tears his clothes, because that's what they do back then. He's like, no, and he thinks this guy wants to go to war with me. He's picking a fight with me. Well, anyway, Elisha hears about it, and he says, you know, tell Naaman to come to me. Now, Elisha could have just spoken the word, and Naaman could have been healed. But Elisha does three things that kind of infuriate, in the end, they infuriate Naaman, because Naaman is used to being very respected. And, you know, look at me, I'm the general, I killed the king, I'm a war hero, I have a lot of money. And Elisha really doesn't give him the time of day. He makes him come all the way there instead of just saying the word and having him healed. So that's one thing to kind of, you know, Elisha has an intuition that this guy is arrogant. And that's the whole reason that he has this skin disease. So when he comes all the way there, Elisha doesn't even, he comes to Elisha's house, and Elisha doesn't even come to the door. He sends a servant, and the servant says, Elisha said to tell you to go down to the Jordan River and dunk 7 times. So he's just really mad. There's 3 things now. 1, he has to come all the way there. 2, he gets to his house, and Elisha doesn't even come to the door. He sends a servant. And 3, he has to get off his horse and walk to this lowly Jordan River, and he's like, this is bull. Basically he's very, angry about how he's being treated. So he's just ready to be angry and go home and not be healed and not do anything that Elisha said. He's just mad. But his servants, they kind of know who he is, and they know his arrogance, and they try to talk to him, and they say, come on, look, what if he told you to do this great thing? You would do it. Just, what have you got to lose? Just do it. So he dunks 7 times. I love what the commentaries say. Why 7? Something happened to Naaman during this time. He dunked 7 times in the Jordan River, like Elisha said, and he was healed. And he goes to Elisha. He tries to pay him. Elisha won't take the money. But Naaman not only becomes physically healed, he becomes spiritually healed. He becomes a righteous Gentile, and he tells Elisha that he believes in the God of Israel. And the reason that Elisha told him to dunk 7 times was for the 7 Noahide laws, the 7 universal laws. And so this Naaman turns from idol worship and becomes a righteous Gentile, what we call today a Noahide. So at one point in the story, he was so angry, he was like, this is bull. But in the end, he humbled himself. He got rid of his arrogance. He was healed physically. He was healed spiritually. Restored, recovered, physically, spiritually. Okay, and so then we talked about this Wall Street bull. So there's another story of a woman that worked on Wall Street. She was, she had her MBA, and she had visions of what her life was going to be like when she had children. And in her mind, her children, you were going to come into her house and you would smell the bread baking, and her children would just all be sitting around the table, all behaving, and then reality struck. And she said nothing that she did in her job as a CEO on Wall Street prepared her for, it was much harder raising. She had 4 kids in 13 years. So she said sometimes life worked the way that she had it in her head, but probably about the other 363 days a year, she needed some help. And so she says, I'm going to tell you. So she turned to the ancient wisdom, the ancient Jewish wisdom. She got these parenting tips. So I'm just going to go through these real quick, these 7 parenting tips. And what we started doing now, is after this talk, we started meeting in the Zoom room. So anything that I go over now, briefly, we can go over more in the Zoom room, and I'll put up the link. And we've also had people coming in and sharing their story. And so we've taken turns kind of getting to know each other. So it's been a fun time in the Zoom room. So I just want to invite you all. It's 3 o'clock Eastern time to come into our Zoom room and chat with us. So, okay, so this woman who was a CEO on Wall Street, she has 4 kids, and she's like, nothing prepared me for this. So she turns to the ancient wisdom, and she says, these 7 parenting principles can help you go from bearish to bullish. She uses these Wall Street terms on your best long-term investment. She knew that her children were her best long-term investment. So she really wanted to put the time and the energy into it. So number 1 is something that we've talked about before. It takes 3 people to make a baby, a man, a woman, and God. So that was the first thing to remember, that God is a partner in this. And so we have to rely on his divine assistance. And he doesn't give us more than we can handle. And actually it means that he gave us these children, and they're actually the perfect match for us, and we're the perfect match for them. He matched us up, the right child to the right parent, even though it doesn't seem like that sometimes. But we can't take all the credit either. When they turn out good, we have to give a lot of credit to God. Okay, number 2, we've also talked about this before, is the proverb that says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. And the way that he should go, now that means every child has a certain bent. You know, every child has a unique personality. They have certain strengths and certain weaknesses, and you see it when they're young. You can tell by what toys they choose to play with. Just kind of, you know, you can tell pretty much early on their which way they're going, their strengths and their weaknesses. And so she says, one of the things that we have to do is cultivate their weaknesses and help them with it, hone this animal. Like, we're working on our own animal, but the children need to be honed also. And there's this idea of mind over heart. We have a prayer that we say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Ahad, but it goes on to say that take these words and put them on your heart. So we have our godly soul, which we would call the mind, mindfulness. And then we have this animal soul, and the animal soul is all our impulses. So we want to have the mind rule over the impulse. We want to impulsively eat. We want to impulsively speak. We want to impulsively shop. We want to impulsively do all these things, maybe too much emphasis on the material things and not enough on the spiritual. So the idea is to have the mind rule over our heart, our mindfulness rule over our impulses. So this is the same thing that we need to do. We teach our children, and we have, meditate on these words, meditate and put them on our heart so that our heart gets honed in, and we're guided by our godly soul more than our animal soul. All right, number 3 is the 5th commandment: honor your father and mother. Because he says if you do not, if your children don't honor you, you're going to have a hard time teaching them anything else. And, teachers know what kids honor their parents, because it's kind of like a ripple effect. If they honor their parents, they're going to go to school and honor their teachers. They're going to honor the policemen, because you take it from your family to your community. So we want our children to end up to contribute to the world. So it starts at home. Honor your parents and take it forward to the teachers, the community members, and make a contribution to the world. Number 4 has to do with this ratio of discipline and love. The ratio, they say, is usually like 80-20, and with teenagers it's more like 90-10. And what I mean by that is they say you have like a dominant hand and a less dominant hand. So with the right hand, say if that's your dominant hand, with your right hand you are pleasant and peaceful, and you have these 80% of those kind of interactions with your child, and 20% discipline. So it should be a lot more, the ratio should be a lot more towards the, it says discipline should be implemented rarely, and we can influence our children more if we approach them pleasantly and peacefully. And yes, this does suggest that parents should stop yelling. Consider what you're going to say before letting the words escape. So there should be a lot more, the ratio should be 80% positive interactions to 20% negative, and 90-10 for teenagers. Number 5 is Proverbs 20:27, the soul of man is a candle of God. And so on Friday nights for the Shabbat, and you can do this at home, we light a candle for each of our children, and we need to see our children as these souls and see them that they're inherently good, and they're from God, and they're gifts from God. And we should teach our children that the world is brighter because of their existence. All right, and number 6, we are required to teach our children to swim. Okay, so obviously that's for their physical safety. But when you take this further, they have to swim in other areas of their life. We're supposed to help them find a spouse. We're supposed to help them find a profession. So this is really good. It says the obligation to find them a spouse also means educating them to become emotionally mature adults, equipped to maintain familial relationships. Okay? They have to know how to operate in a family. They have to learn how to find a spouse, be a good spouse. Teaching our children a profession means providing them with the practical skills necessary to survive and succeed in life. So aside from the life-saving component, the obligation to teach our children how to swim also means teaching them the skills necessary to swim amidst the risks and challenges inherent in life's murky waters. Okay, but once we've taught them how, we cannot swim for them. Okay? And the last one is just 2 words. In Genesis 12:1, the Hebrew word is lech lecha, which means go forth, which means take risks. You know, sometimes we think that we want our children to act like little angels, but we really don't. Because angels just stand still. They're stagnant. Humans, they could be rambunctious little kids, but it says unlike the angels, they climb levels and can reach higher. They can fall and get up again, so let them move, let them swim, let them grow, take the risks. And so here's how she ends it. She says, 4 kids and 13 years later, I run my home with the precision of a CEO, I bake that homemade challah, and I have a team of pleasantly behaved children, ... some days. The other days, I rely on these parenting principles to stay the course on what I now bullishly believe to have been my best long-term investment. All right, so that's the other bull. You know, the bull market is the one going up. They say, I think the reason is because when a bull attacks, its horns go up, and when the bull attacks, its paws, it attacks, go down. So when the market's going up, it's a bull market, and when the market's going down, it's a bear market. So anyway, she uses these Wall Street terms because that's where she worked. Okay, so those are the 3 bulls. The Taurus bull that we have entered at this time, and the bull that Naaman felt that Elisha was giving him, and then this Wall Street bull. Okay, so I also wanted to say something about quarantine, because the word quarantine is actually in our Torah portion this week, and we're always talking about how this is not the Old Testament, this is alive and well, our Torah, and it seems like we're always reading something that's also going on in the news. And so, and if you look at the life of King David, we all love King David, and he wrote these beautiful Psalms for us, but you know what? He spent a lot of his life in quarantine. And if you think about it, you know, he was supposed to be the king, and there he was, hiding out in the cave, and hiding out in the desert. And he can't, it's like his life is on pause, like he can't go forward. He's like, he can't, just kind of how we feel right now. Like he's being, you know, pursued by King Saul, and so he's quarantined. He's just hiding. But during this time, you know, he writes these beautiful Psalms that we still have today. And then lastly, the story of our forefather Jacob. And Jacob, you know that story where he fights all night with the angel. And then he says to the angel, he says, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. And so let's look at this coronavirus and say, coronavirus, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. And Jacob was telling us, like, if I have to suffer, then there's got to be a reason for it. There's got to be a blessing to come out of this. So let's find that. Let's say, you know, if we're going to have to go through all this, like when David went through all that, at least we got like all the Psalms from him. And so we want a blessing. If we're going to go through what we're going through now with this coronavirus, let's say you're not going until we get a blessing. And so this month is a time of healing. It's a time of introspection. It's a time of this teshuvah, which is a transformation, recovering, putting ourselves in recovery, recovering our character defects, working on ourselves, truly repenting, truly becoming different people, finding out, you know, just a very thoughtful month. Each month, and we can talk about more in the Zoom room, but each month has a tribe, each month has a Hebrew letter, each month has a body part, and we can go through what each of that is. And so that's what's in the air this month of ER, this second month. It's a healing month. All right, so let's all be blessed. Let's all be healed in the way that we need healing, physically, spiritually, and I'll see you back here next week, or I'll see you here in a few minutes in the Zoom room. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I'm glad for this time that we get to have together. And I hope you enjoyed the 3 bull stories. All right, that's all for now. Shalom from Israel.